Yeah. Okay, live now. Hello, everybody. So today we are ending August, almost coming to the end of this year 2023. And today we are here in this journalistic interview program with two French ladies. Marie, that was my Japanese student for about half a year, and has been to Japan in July, yeah, about last month, I think, with her friend Marine, that is here with us today as well. Nice to meet you. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu.
Nice to meet you.
Um,
よろしくお願いします.
yeah, very well. So it's first time I'm interacting with Marine Dagon, but Marie Weissel was my student for a couple of months, so we are we are not no more strangers to each other. Uh,
うん。
anyway, I don't know who will watch this video later, so it's better if we introduce ourselves. I am a journalist and also a Japanese teacher nowadays. Um, I worked at the major newspapers of Brazil, like Folha de São Paulo and a little at Estadão. And I worked, for example, about tourism, travel, science, technology, um, and environment, among other issues as well. But nowadays, I have this interview program that is usually weekly, um, talking about many kinds of issues like health, sports, culture, um, and mainly in this case of today, Japanese culture, Asian culture as well. Like we are now talking about this French lady's experience in Asia, in this case, South Korea and Japan. As, as I know, Mahinu studied more Korean,
Yes.
Kankoku Go, as we say in Japanese. I don't know, I have no idea how to say that in Korean. I
한국.
think that Hangul is the name of the alphabet, maybe. I don't know.
Yes.
Um, but you can
Hangul
tell
is the name
us
of
more
the
about
한국.
alphabet.
Hangul. Well, okay. Later you may teach me more about Hangul or something like that because I have no idea. Um, and Mahin studied with me Japanese, so it was a great idea to share their knowledge, to enjoy their adventure in East Asia. Yeah. So now it's your turn. Please feel free to introduce yourselves and start to talk about your experience, why you have this idea of join your forces and abilities to do this adventure in Asia. Um, who wants to start? Marie, Marine?
So I can start. About visiting Japan and South Korea. Firstly, Marine and I met on university in our studies of literature, French literature. And firstly, I wasn't interested in Japan at all. So maybe a little bit, but not as today. But Marine gave me interests into South Korean culture. She was learning the alphabet and made me learn the alphabet in the university. Even if I didn't know a lot of things about it, it was so interesting and I put my efforts into it. Then, little by little, we wanted to go to South Korea, but COVID was the problem for traveling. And when I finished my studies of literature, I had time to study a language that I really like as my dream of a young teenager, Japanese. So I studied it and I offered to Marine to add to our trip to South Korea, Japan too. Like if we travel to the uh, if you travel a long way in another place in the world, let's travel the both countries that are kind of close together. It's a good idea to do the both of the countries, and I can present Japan to her, and she can present South Korea to me.
Very well. いいですね。Okay. Merhini-san, please introduce yourself.
Okay, so right now I work in a museum for children to learn about science. And so it was the perfect time for me to travel now because I had a lot of holidays that I could take. And going to South Korea was really a dream for me since many years ago. I already went once 5 years ago. So when Marie asked me if I could go to Japan also, I was kind of excited about it. I didn't know anything about Japan and the Japanese culture, but I thought it would be nice to add to the trip and see the differences between South Korea and Japan. So it was a really good experience.
Nice. Well, so at first, what brought your interest into South Korea and Japan? What was actually your first impressions without knowing Japan and South Korea? And what was the most what was the difference between impression at far and in reality in the place at spot?
I think for South Korea, I think food was really the thing for me. I wanted to try new kind of food, more Asian food, real interesting food from Japan and South Korea. But my both of us were kind of shocked because of Americanization of South Korea as a modern country, because everything we tasted was really sugary, a lot of sugar in everything, because it's a capitalist society. Instead, in Japan, it was not as sugary, but more salty and more appreciable. Can we say appreciable? Uh, like I think both of us can agree to Japanese food being the best out of Korean food, and it was a surprise for us. I think Marine didn't expect that.
Yes, exactly. I didn't really know what to expect for Japanese food, and it was really nice and really good, especially compared to the South Korean food, which was really either spicy or very sweet. So it was really hard for us to enjoy food. So it was a relief to eat such good food in Japan. So that
As
was nice.
we're vegetarians too, we do not eat meat or fish. So in Japan, it was maybe more easier to find something to eat than in South Korea, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting. You both of you are vegetarians.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. So I can also um, tell about this interview with my vegetarian friends as well, because I'm a vegetarian too.
But we
Even
were vegans before together.
okay, I worked also to the Vegetarians magazine of Brazil years ago, and then when I was in Japan for last time in 2008, 15 years ago,
Okay.
I did a big report about vegetarianism in Japan.
Okay.
Um, so this matter is also very interesting to me and my friends. Good. So it was easier to accommodate yourselves as vegetarians in Japan than
Yes.
in South Korea.
Yes. Really.
And oh,
Oh,
Vas-y.
this is-
And also, I think on public services like cleaning the streets, toilets, people attendant to give you services anywhere to buy tickets or everything. Maybe in Japan, in my opinion, people were more respectful to the clients. Like the client is everything, we need to be really respectful. In Korea, it depends. Sometimes we were really respected by the person for the service we demand. And sometimes it was just like in France, you know, you're really bothering the person working. The person doesn't want to do the work and is really annoyed by your presence. I think in Japan, you have a culture where the customer is really important. You have to serve him right.
I also think that maybe in South Korea the tourism is more recent.
No, recent.
So maybe they are not used to this much tourism yet. So I think it's really something new for them. So maybe that's why also they are a little bit less welcoming sometimes. But it was not every time. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if Japan and South Korea have the same rate of tourism. Like South Korea is more open to the world and Japan is less open to the world, but still they have to give the desire to the world to come to the country for the importance of the natality rates and for the economic uh, to increase because there there was a problem with the economy in Japan, so they need tourism. So I don't know which one is more recent, but I think maybe they have to deal in South Korea with more and more and more tourists every day, so it's difficult for them.
Maybe South Korea is getting like a boom of the tourism just
Yeah.
recently. Do you feel like that? So they are still taking care of solving this matter, maybe?
Mm.
I think they are adjusting because Japan is well known since a lot of decades for animes, food, and stuff like that. And South Korea, it's just since a few years ago, like less than 10 years. So I think,
Oh, I
especially since
know
the,
what you're saying. Yeah, I agree. Because it's more recent to the world. Like when I show to my Facebook stories to people South Korea, people in the 30s were like, "Where? South Korea? Isn't it Japan?" Because of course sanctuary are similar in the architecture. And I said, "Yeah, of course I went to South Korea. It's so famous." And the person was saying, when I was a teenager, talking about Japanese anime was so underrated. And now you're saying to me that everybody knows Japan, but yes, Japan is more famous than South Korea since a lot of years.
Even though, according to what I looked into polls, international polls, researches about the interest in international interest into languages, um, I see that maybe Japanese and Korean are very similar in interest nowadays, at least. Yeah, maybe Japanese, maybe like the 10th in the ranking of popularity, and the Korean maybe something like that. Also, I don't know very well the something like that. I researched this um, some time ago. Maybe later I can check again. Um, so yeah, maybe Japan has had his boom of popularity before with pop culture, but now it's the time of South Korea with dorama, K-pop, and so on. Yeah, I would like you to share with us what people in France, or at least in your town, in your region, what usually they think about Japan and South Korea. Yeah, about the general impressions of people who have never been to these places in East Asia,
Mm,
like you. Yeah, I'm Brazilian. I'm also Western, like you. Although I look like Japanese and Asian because of
mm,
my genetics of my ancestrals, my family. But our culture in general is Western, European, and at all.
mm,
So usually, I think for us in general, Europeans, Americans, Brazilians, this stuff of East Asia still looks like something exotic. Yeah, something
mm,
very mysterious. Yeah,
mm.
um, magical. I don't know very well how to describe this. I'd like you to try to describe the general feeling of your people in France, your friends, family, etc., has
Mm.
about Japan and South Korea, for example.
Marine can present like the opinion of French for South Korea, and I can present the opinion of French people for Japan, I think.
Okay. I think that people around me don't really know well South Korea. Usually, when tell them that, oh, I went to South Korea, they don't really know what to expect or what to imagine, what the country is like, the landscapes, the culture. It's really not well known. But amongst the young people my age, some of them already went there, and some of them want to go there and know a little bit, especially about the food and yes, the movies and the series. But they don't really know well about the architecture and how the country is. I think they maybe think it's like Japan. I
Mm.
think.
And for Japan, I think everybody has an opinion on it. But in France, we have a lot of documentaries on our best and famous TV channels with the best information. Irony, of course. We really know the pressuring system of Japan with the collective society working together, and if everyone is different, the person is put aside and marginalized and suffering from it, and the rates of depression, anxiety, and mental mental health issues is really a problem. I think everybody know that. Everybody has an information of the Japanese society very pressuring people with rules and way and manners. But of course, the younger generation, when you talk to them about Japan, they're so happy because of the pop culture and the soft power of the country, mangas, animes, food, everything linked with that for the younger generation, and everything linked with the pressuring society for the older generation. And I think maybe for everyone has a sense of Japan is a exotic country with something kind of magic, with their poetic, aesthetic paintings. As for South Korea too, but nobody knows that very well.
And
Mm,
I think that Japan is also very famous for the video games, for the
Mm,
animation, and
mm,
usually that's the first thing that comes into people's minds.
yeah, yeah.
When we talk about South Korea, usually they think like it's the same. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Samsung is from South Korea, yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Samsung,
maybe
Hyundai,
Mm.
what more
uh,
besides Samsung?
Hyundai, the
It's a car. Mhm.
car. What is famous in South Korea? They have a lot of electronics. They are really famous for that. They
Mm.
are the first one on electronics
Hmm.
products.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the language because you have been studying Japanese language and Korean language um, for a couple of months at least, and you put a lot of efforts into this. So let's try to compare a little bit Japanese and the Korean. Of course, in the matter you can talk about because each of one of you studied focused each one into just one of the language. But maybe you could share some ideas about the similarities and the differences. Could you please?
Mhm.
Well, I think that Korean is a lot easier than Japanese um, for different reasons. The first one is the alphabet. Um, Korean alphabet is really easy. Like you can learn it in a half an hour or an hour, and that's it. For the tense, like there is past, present, and future, but for the different person, like I, you, they, them, it's the same word. So it's also a lot easier to conjugate and speak. And I think usually it's just the vocabulary that is hard to learn sometimes, but the language in itself is made in the way to be easy to learn and to use.
I agree with her when you see how South Korea is created historically, like Japan and South Korea and like ancient Korea uh, were connected by Chinese sinograms and characters. Then South Korea created its own language, and it's really unique. As in Japan too has its own language, very nuanced, very subtle, with a lot of differences for each word. That's why I find a lot of poetical meanings in understanding every characters. So Japanese is very hard to learn, but it's very cliche to say that. But as I was a teenager and I watched a lot of animes, some words stay in my mind, some constructions, some sentences, you have it. So it's easier to put your mind into it, to work on it. But of course, compared to Hanguk, the katakana, hiragana, and the kanjis are more hard to learn. But when you talk a lot, and I was not focused on reading, but on talking for my travel, it's really, I think when you practice week after week, you can say it begins to be easier.
Yeah, and about the sound, the pronunciation, how could you compare Korean and Japanese, um, even compared to French and English that you
Mm.
also know? Um, how can you describe the pronunciation, the sounds of these languages?
It's
I think
maybe
that yeah,
go. Vas-y toi. Vas-y.
I think that in Korean there is a lot of k and harsh sounds, and even when the people speak, I think they speak maybe a little louder than Japanese people,
Mm.
who tends to speak higher and in the pitch and really smooth and not too loud. I think Korean is really, I don't know how to describe it, but there is a lot of k and g sounds.
I think I totally agree with you. I was actually going to say that uh, Korean language is very maybe harsh sometimes. Like the first time I heard Korean languages on Netflix series, I was shocked. Like I don't know this language. This is so dramatic. The oh the ah very very dramatic. I was shocked. I found Japanese more, yeah, more calm, more subtle, but maybe it depends on the person speaking, the age of the person speaking, the countryside, maybe sometimes with the accents. But yeah, I agree with what Marin's saying.
Let's compare, for example, the sentence like, um, I like to study Japanese. Yeah. And you could say, I like to study Korean. Yeah. For example, in Nihongo,
Mm.
how could you say, for example, Nihongo no benkyou ga suki desu. Né? For example, I like the
Nihon.
study of Japanese. Nihongo no benkyou ga suki desu. How would you say something similar in Korean?
Well, I don't want to butch the language, but I think because I learned by myself, so I'm not sure. But I think it's supposed to sound like 한국어를 배워요. 한국어를
Yeah. You,
좋아요.
you
Something
say
like that.
higher,
Mm.
something like look sort of higher. Oh yeah,
Mm.
Mm.
But maybe it's her pitch voice too.
I don't
You
uh,
see
know.
her. But when you 한국,
한국어를 배워.
it's very light and melodic when you say it. I don't think it's harsh like I
yeah.
had it in my mind.
I have
Because
watched also some doramas, some Korean doramas as well. It was my approach also to Korean. Uh, and just a little. Yeah, I'm not like a Dorameiro, a really real fan, but I've watched a couple, and yeah, in fact, the pronunciation is much different from
Mm.
Nihongo.
mm,
Um, and when I was in Japan, and I could meet many people from many other countries in Asia, for example, from Vietnam and also China. I don't remember much of Korean people, but comparing, for example, Japanese sounds and Vietnamese and Chinese, at least, this was my general idea. Like Nihongo is more tokoropoko, toropoko, topokoro. Chinese and Vietnamese, oh yeah, yeah,
Mm.
more, such a
mm,
higher
Mm.
pitch like this. Of course,
mm,
I have no idea about Chinese, neither
mm,
Vietnamese, but this was what my impression. I don't know if it's
Mm.
something similar to Korean and Chinese, Vietnamese in this matter.
I don't know, but sometimes I think Korean is more like really dramatic with the oh, like
mm.
oh, oh, very expressive. I don't know if we have that in Japanese, but Marin, do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
they like to emphasize and to
Mm.
elongate the sounds to make it more dramatic. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
really.
Mm,
Like it really shocked me the first time I hear it. And I
Yeah, of
wanted to
course.
say,
Japanese people also may show surprise, like "so this car," But even though you think Japanese people express this astonishment, for example, in
mm,
not so much how, like
yeah,
Koreans, you
mm.
think?
yeah, Koreans, I think it's more dramatic, really.
Like to demonstrate their feelings.
Yeah, with the hands, the movement of the hands a lot. You can saw it.
Mm,
And I was shocked too by the difference of traditions and modernity because both countries are known for mixing tradition and modernity, but clearly South Korea is more modern than
Mm,
Japan.
mm,
Japan has more traditions integrated in society, in way of living. In South Korea, yeah, you have it, of course, but people are more uh, appre- people are more they like the Western world. They want it in their world too.
mm,
Just in fashion, you have a lot of fashion trends moving, changing, like real fast fashion. If you go to Japan, Fashion is more subtle. It's more modest. The colors are more, and the colors are more uh, neutral tones, and even the clothes is more. How do you say it? More. Even the clothes is more modest. Like you have to cover. In South Korea, of course, you have to cover the
shoulders and cleavage, but
yeah.
you can wear shorts or short skirts, and it's okay in South Korea. Whereas in Japan, if you wear short skirts or shorts, they can really stare at you and
Mm.
and
In
yeah.
Japan, it's not the same. You can feel the tradition is important, and you have to respect the way of
Wow.
wearing.
Wow. Yeah. Um, we may talk about this kind of behavior. So, in general, people comparing, well, of course, actually, I don't know very well the difference of behavior in France.
Mm.
I've not been in France or just to England, Italy, and Spain. It's my experience in Europe, just Spain, Britain, and Italy and Greece. I've never been to France, but I have a general idea of the behavior in
Mm.
Europe and in Brazil at least. And I know
Mm.
that in Asia, at least in Japan, the only Asian country I have been to, wow, it's much different from here. Um,
Mm.
the way people touch, actually, they don't touch each other.
Mm.
For example,
Yeah.
the way they salutate at far, for example. Um, well, here in Brazil, we are much of the huggers, for example, and
Mm.
the kissers as well. Um, the only thing I know about France, I think, is more like the Emily in Paris movie.
Yeah, really cliche stereotypes. Nothing is real.
Yeah, I don't know very well about
Mm.
these behaviors, and you may talk now in this live. So something comparing them to this Emily in Paris stereotypes. Then what is real people behaving in your country, in your town, and what you found in South Korea and Japan about this behavior of people, the way they deal with you, they interact with you, they talk, etc.
It's very funny how I think it's in Asia, like in the whole Asia, the rules for the elders and youngers, you don't have that in Western countries. Like, of course, you have to respect people older than you, but in Japan and in South Korea, it's the same. Like, you really have to respect the older person with certain words, certain ways of. If there is a party and you have to drink something, you have a way of drinking when the older person is drinking, or pouring the glass. And in Japan too, you have to respect the older in a way of speaking, and maybe there is traditions like that in Japan that I don't know about elder people. But they have, this is a real power. You have to respect them, like, even if in high school.
You have to act a certain way around older people.
Mm.
And in France, you also have the thing that you have to speak respectfully and to be careful around elders, but usually
Mm.
you don't have that much respect when
You
you
can
are.
speak casually. Like, Marine is my elder. When I first met her, I talked to her uh, really normally. And even if I speak to someone 10 years older than me, I speak really casually.
Mhm.
I will speak formally for uh, someone that's patron, boss, someone, I don't have
On
the
the
word.
hierarchy, yeah. Mm.
Elder
Until they
in
say, oh, you can say tu, you can speak casually, and then.
mm.
Mm.
And you have that in Japan, but not in South Korea, about not saying the first name of the person. You have to speak with the last name. In South Korea, I think you can say the first name normally. You don't have a thing about it. But in Japan, if someone is telling you first name and you didn't allow them to, you'll be like, what are you doing? Why are you being disrespectful? In France, if you tell the last name of the person instead of the first name, something is up. So it's
Mm.
either funny or disrespectful. Like if I say Dagon, come here, it's very weird.
Yeah, very harsh, and I would be like, what's what's wrong with her? So yeah.
But in Japan, it's respectful. Like Dagon, I'm happy to see you.
Yeah, it would be very weird. So we
I
don't say that.
remember about that anime I like very much in Netflix. I don't know if it's also in French Netflix. Uh, Something like the teasing master Takagi-san. I don't know if you know this, but I love this and I love to talk about everybody about this anime
It's
because
funny, yeah. It's famous. Sorry.
sorry.
It's a famous anime. We have it on Netflix too.
Oh, great. So I love this. If you didn't watch it yet, I recommend very much you watch. It's very cute and very funny, I think. And maybe in the episode number 6 or 7, maybe, um, there's something related to this way of calling people, um, because
Mm,
the boy is very shy actually and has trouble to get intimate to people, but the girl is very easygoing, no
mm,
trouble about nothing, uh, and then she challenges him to call her by her first name. Just that.
mm,
And he couldn't at all. Or maybe no, actually, she tried to convince him to call her without san. Yeah. Like
mm,
Takagi-san, he couldn't. He was saying that and Takagi because if you don't say san, you were
It's not
also
respectful.
being
It's
very intimate
casual.
with the person. Yeah, like Takagi. Takagi is her last name, even though he couldn't even try to say her last name without san, uh,
Mm,
like Mr. or Mrs. in English, maybe. Yeah. Of course, it's not the same because in Japanese, san is like the normal way to call everyone you are not very intimate to. Yeah. But the boy couldn't say Takagi, just Takagi. That is
mm.
more close. Yeah. And they are like between kids and teenagers. It's incredible. I think this express a little. I don't know very much how youngsters are today behaving, but um, as this was published and broadcasted to Japan, I imagine this resonates with their culture.
Mm. I think this is a huge difference between South Korea and Japan, according to names. But I liked during our travel one big common point with Japan and South Korea, and it's Buddhism and Buddhist sanctuaries, the architecture, the way of it's organized in Japan and in South Korea is so similar. Like the the similarities are huge. You can see the little difference, like in, I think it was with the gods. Like you have in in South Korea, you have four guards like protecting the temple, and in Japan, you have two guards protecting the temple. But it's clearly the same. They have the same faces, furious, angry faces. I think I have the names
Angry faces.
in Japan. It's um,
Maybe Tengu. I don't know which one.
maybe it's Tengu.
Tengu is
Wait,
the long-nosed creature.
no, not that. You don't have that in front of Buddhist temples. It's Agyo and Ongyo, I think, Neo statues, or maybe Kongo Rikshi. This style of furious statues and not the kabuko comic ones. And in South Korea, the name of these statues are, I have it, Patton Wangmun. I don't know if I'm going to say it right, but it's very funny how you have the same things, but
Interesting.
just in two different countries because it's close.
Interesting. So you think the physical structure is very similar
Mm,
between Japan and South Korea, but
mm.
the way they behave is more different between them.
No, the way you have to behave in a Buddhist temple, the only difference I think is that in Japan, I didn't saw people acting like in South Korea. In South Korea, in Buddhist temple, people take the mantra, are there for hours reading the mantra, meditating hard and really focusing. In Japan, people are coming, doing some, how do you
Prayer.
say, yeah, prayers in their way of bowing, clapping, giving the 5 yen money, and they coming back home. But in Japan, when you have to go to a Buddhist temple, it's like you're doing it hard and for a long time with long hours. And maybe it's because this is the only form of religion different than Christianism in South Korea, because in Japan you have Shintoism and Buddhism, so you have a lot of choices. If you want to focus, you go to Buddhism. If you want something more with the luck and the magic in your life, to have a more optimistic way of seeing life, you have Shintoism. You don't have to read text or believe in kamis. But in Buddhism, you have to read text to know the stories of the Buddhas, the one going to the nirvana, the one not staying in the nirvana, coming back to the earth. But in both Japan and South Korea, you will have the Bodhisattva statues that you will protect and idolize, not idolize, but respect, maybe.
It's also your opinion, Martin-san, or something else you have to add here.
I think that, yeah, usually in many different ways, both countries are very different. But in terms of religion, I think the Buddhist temples were very similar, and in the architecture or even in the main statues and
Mm,
way of um, um, experimenting and experiencing um, the religion. But yeah, I think that in South Korea, the temple we went to, the Buddhist temple, people were really praying hard, and it was really important for them. And we met Buddhist
monk.
monk,
Monk?
yeah, who told us little stories about the religion, and he really took time to talk to us, and it was a really nice experience. Whereas in Japan, I think everyone is more in their little bubbles, and
Mm.
they go, they say their prayers, and they come back. It's quicker, I think.
Yeah,
They
I don't know if it has any relation to this, but sometimes I check on maps rankings, international ranks on like the the most religious people in the
Mm.
world, the countries with more religious people, and the list. And Japan is like the list, or one of
Mm.
the list. Um, we have these famous temples or shrines in Japan, Shinto and Buddhism, that are very, I don't know, well, um, picturesque, yeah, to see. But I think that maybe it's more formal thing, but it's not so
Mm.
much relevant in the
Mm.
lives of Japanese people. Maybe
And
I don't know if it seems it's your impression too. Maybe.
also in Japan, around temples, each time you had a lot of shops to buy little amulets and different kind of things depending on what you want to wish for, luck, money, health.
Omamori.
Mm. Whereas in Korea, they didn't have that. They had
Mm,
shops to buy books or bracelets and
mm.
jewelry to pray, but not. It was really not as much as in Japan. In Japan, it was really everywhere, and it was in front of every temple, different little shops, and that really not shocked me, but it stood out. It stand out to me. Yeah. So yeah.
Interesting.
Mm.
Could you compare something with the reality in your town in France? Of course, in France and Brazil, we are not Buddhist, not neither Shintoism, but more Christian.
Christians.
And I don't know even if you are any kind of Christian or religious any time, any type of this. But if you could compare what you see in your neighborhood, for example, in the case
Oh,
of churches,
it,
Catholic or even Protestant churches, for example, the
we
way
have a
people.
lot of churches in
Everywhere.
every city, like it's normal. And as in Japan, people working in the sanctuary do the little umamori and charms, like they do it to have money to take care of the temple. Here in France, I don't know if the people in the church do the goodies they not the goodies, this is not the right term, but the thing they offer. But you can buy cross jewelry, a lot of jewelry with the Saint Mary, Jesus, postcards.
Mhm.
But
And also in every church, you can give a little money to light up a candle and
oh
to
yeah,
have a small wish.
yeah, we
That's
have that.
very famous here also.
Mm,
Like my grandparents, every time they come to a church, they light up a candle. It's really important for them. So I think in France, it's also really important for the elder people.
Mm,
But I think that in Asia, it's still more for like even younger one.
mm.
I
Like
think.
in
sorry
South
again.
Korea, for the exam period, everyone is going to Buddhist temple to pray for the exams,
Mm,
even the young ones.
mm,
Oh, interesting. Uh, and do you think, well, I think that in Brazil, at least, the religion, be it Catholic and even more
Mm,
Protestant people, they have even maybe more and more influence, even in politics, for example. They have such power that I have never imagined. But
mm.
the religious people, like Christ, Protestant evangelic people here, they are very, very much in evidence in Brazil. I
Oh,
don't know in
okay.
France how it is, has
No.
you see how you see this influence of
Yeah, in
religion.
France, like they want to separate religion and government. It's
mm,
kind of funny because a lot of rich people making money in France have religion power, but it's another subject. But they really, like all France country, really have a problem with another religion that is not Christian. But they have a problem with Muslim people. So if they are going to say, oh, we have a problem with Muslim, but Christianity is good, it's going to be something bad. So they have to separate every kind of religion with the government. It's normally we have to do that in France, but it's not really applied everywhere and every time. I don't know if you agree to me, Marine.
Even before there was a lot of Muslims and other religion in France, they
Mm,
had to separate church and
mm,
the
state.
government because church was becoming really powerful,
Mm,
and sometimes it was against the government and
low.
uh, because I think at the time the power were equal, and sometimes religion was against some ideas of the government. So at the time they had to really separate. And I don't know much about history, but that's what I remember from our class.
Mm,
And
laicity.
mm, and the topics about different religion was is more recent. Like
Mm,
it's been a few decades, but it's more recent. And now in our country, it's really everyone should be equal. So there should be no religion in school
mm,
uh, and in public spaces. Public
mm,
places. So
Mhm.
it's to be. It's supposed to be more. So everyone can feel safe and respected. That's
Mhm.
mm.
the goal.
Yeah,
I,
I
I
understand you.
wanted to add because it's nearly 1 hour. I wanted to add this because it's very important. Two things that in Japan, I have my book. You have tori,
Wow,
like
beautiful.
adorable tori, but you have the same in South Korea. Look, in South Korea, it's
It's
Hong
almost.
Sun Moon. This one. Whoa.
Mm,
Okay, very similar.
mm,
Yeah, you have so similarities in this, and very important in
And I thought
Buddhist
that this
temple.
story was just Japanese. I thought that this was
No, no,
Shinto.
no, no. You have Indian ones, Chinese ones, Thailand one, and in Japan, you know the Komainu, the two lion dogs,
Ah,
the
this was
one
the
opening the
Lions.
mouth saying the like the beginning of life, and the one closing the mouth expressing the end of life, like in the Buddhism, the cycle of uh, life and life again. You have
Mm,
the same in Japan and in Korea. The Korean one is similar to the. Oh, it's really ugly. I don't like it, but okay. I don't know.
okay.
It's a hete. This is.
Uh,
It's really ugly. This is the Korean one, very blue and green.
uh-huh.
And the Japanese one, usually it's. Where is it?
Well, just need to warn you that we've been here for almost 1 hour. Yeah,
Mm.
50 53 minutes,
mm.
and I soon I need to close to maybe other appointment. Well, this is Korean, and it similar to
No, I think this is a generic one.
okay.
So a few stories about the dog lions you can see in South Korea and in Japan too.
Oh, this like the same,
This time
the
also.
same figure.
The same
Okay,
figures, yes.
okay.
I
Well,
wanted to say it before the end of the live about
interesting.
it.
Well, just to have in mind, we are need to finish very soon because
Mm,
before we three, we needed to go to other appointments. I suppose it's getting late here there in France also. I suppose,
yes.
um, and I like very much appreciate very much your efforts to share your experiences. Anyway, just to compare a little bit, I found
Mm.
the ranking of the popularity
Ah.
of languages. The first one, English. Second, Mandarin, Chinese, because of the economic power of China
Yeah. Yeah.
nowadays. Yeah. Then Spanish, and then your French. Whoa, French is still there.
Yeah, it's a elegant
Yeah,
language, very hard to learn.
yeah. Then we have Arabics. Yeah. many Arabian countries are in evidence, also in Africa, also in Middle East. Then German, wow, maybe
Wow.
because of economics,
Our
um,
neighbors.
Maybe.
and also, well, I suppose. And
Where is
then
Korean? Where is Japanese?
finally, after German, number 7, Japanese in the world. Um,
And
according
where is Korean?
and Korean is after Italian, number 9, Korean.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. So
it's
it's not.
good. It's the top 10.
Mm.
So in Portuguese, my Portuguese is 10, number 10.
Oh, okay.
Good.
So Japanese number 7, then H Italian, and then Korean, and then Portuguese. Um, but it's in the world, according to ChatGPT, the artificial intelligence I asked to. I don't know very well if it's so exact, but it's a general idea, yeah, at least. Um, and in United States, it seems that Korean is more popular.
Oh, okay.
In America,
Where it's in America?
Mm.
well, I checked that in America, it's number 6 in the ranking of popularity Korean, and Japanese number 9.
Oh,
But I
okay.
think there was a lot of migration between United States and South Korea for university exchanges, I think. There was a lot of people migrating from the country to work with better salaries sometimes. And now we have a lot of families of mixed Korean American people. I think it's a thing. I don't know precisely.
Interesting. And the number 2 language in America is French.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, of course.
They love friends. Mm.
Français. Ouais.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
La
Um,
popularité du français.
Yeah, well, maybe just to finish this and to have a clear idea where to finish, I just need to finish this idea of um, your general idea of the gestures, the ways of behaving of the people of South Korea and Japan. I don't know if I could exactly understand your opinion, your experience. Could you finish this description, please?
I
Comparing
think
to French.
both countries, South Korea and Japan, is paying attention to gestures to show the meaning of the words and meaning of respecting someone. As maybe South Korea use more dramatic way of gestures sometimes, but it's not that different between the two countries. That's not a big difference. I don't know what you're thinking
So
about this, Mary.
what is different? If this is similar, what is different, Marini-san, for example?
It's hard to pick the difference because, as Mary said, it was very similar, especially like bowing and showing respect.
Bowing.
I think that's maybe.
Oh, we have this one. To say sorry in Korea. You don't find this in Japan.
Yeah.
Just this one.
Yeah, but it's not very used. Like.
Oh, okay.
Well,
What about difference between these Asian countries and your experience in your friends then?
It's very different.
For example?
In France,
Nobody bows here.
Yeah,
Sorry?
nobody bows, and we
Sure.
really like to look at people in the eyes. For us, it's respect. Whereas in Japan and South Korea, looking at people in the eyes, they really don't like it.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of rude. So yeah,
in
that
both
was
countries.
that was very different for us.
Yeah, and we talked about a little about the movie, the TV series Emily in Paris, and according to that, the pictures that how much lovers and romantic and cinematographic the French are, yeah, and I don't know how much of this is true or not, even in Paris or in your town, and you could talk more about this. comparing also to Japan, at least what I know is that Japan people are much more discreet. Yeah, much more
Mm.
subtle. Yeah, they don't like to expose their emotions in public or
Mm.
their romantic relationship, something to be at home, something not to be exposed to public. Yeah, but what can you describe about this in France, for example, comparing?
With friends, you can show that you're in a couple. You can kiss in public, hug in public.
Mhm.
It's really not a problem here. It's normal. I
Mhm.
think you can see a lot of couples in South Korea. I saw a lot, but really a lot of couples in South Korea. And couples in Japan, it's more discreet. You don't see them everywhere. I don't saw a lot of them. They're really more shy about it.
Mm. In France, sometimes it's really, it's a
Embarrassing.
little bit, yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing.
Sorry.
Like everyone showing it, you're like, oh, skip it, please. Oh,
But
dear.
yeah, in France, we like, even with our friends, we would like to hug and hold hands and be really showing our affection in public. Whereas, yeah, in Asia, it's really not well, well, um,
Well seen.
yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Well,
don't do that.
maybe just to finish, because it's 1 hour of we were talking here. Maybe just to finish, concluding, what brought you to this universe of East Asian? For example, with your studies on arts, culture. Yeah, maybe this is what initially brought you to this culture so different from what you were used to in Western. Yeah, and what is maybe your conclusion yet just to finish this show this interview today? I'd like you to try to make a starting point. Well, I started learning this and this of culture arts. Yeah, Mahini works with museum arts. Mahini also something of education, and maybe you both share with me this love for culture arts. Yeah, um, and maybe this is what initially brought you to East Asia, and then what we have now.
Marie, do you want to start?
No, you can start.
Okay. Well, at first, honestly, like I heard about South Korea for the first time when I was in high school, but I thought it was really weird and really crazy. So I didn't really um, learn about it more than that. And then when I was um, 16, I think, I started to really rediscover about music and
K-pop,
series,
say it.
the
Please
K-pop.
say it.
And then I was really amazed by the language. I was really curious. I really wanted to learn about the language, the alphabet. I really wanted to be able to speak. And then it's like it really opens the door for the culture and the landscapes. And I was so really into that. I really had a passion about it. Um, so at the time, I really wanted to work in South Korea, but the system is really different from France. So for now, I'm good. I work at the museum in France, but I still think about it sometimes, and maybe someday, I will work in South Korea about the in a tourist office center, maybe. But yeah, at the beginning it was really K-pop, and then now it's really more about the language and the culture in general. So yeah.
My way of seeing things is just like her. When I was a teenager, not 16 years old, but 14 years old, for Japan, it was anime, mangas, J-pop. and video games, of course. But then this was kind of put on the side during my studies. And after, when Marin told me about South Korea, firstly it was K-pop, then dramas and series and movies, then little by little, the language, the culture, about the food, the way of behaving in the society. Then I started to think maybe I don't forget Japan. I still like it. And I was comparing Japan to South Korea, wanting to learn Japanese too. So in Japan and South Korea, the new thing that really I loved it, and I didn't knew that at all when I was a teenager, is architecture. Royal palaces, sanctuary, and temples are really the thing I cannot find in Europe. Plus, of course, the respect you have in both
Yeah, that's really
country.
nice.
When you feel it, it's really incredible. And of course, you start with something more as a teenager, soft power, pop music, movies, but pop culture. But when you really go deep into it, you can see how exotic and magical this kind of Asian culture is and can offer you to escape from our society that we're used to in Europe.
Interesting. Très bien, très bien. um, well, very good. I appreciate a lot your efforts to share your experience. And all this time we're together, we are very enthusiastic here. You are patient of doing that. Um, and I hope that this video helps anyone who is interested into this interchange, this cultural interchange between the countries in the world. Um, I hope this helps these people. And of course, I hope no one feels like a negative impact. All of this is just to not to create stereotypes or prejudices, and just to show the impressions, just to show the differences, the you know, um, just trying to motivate people to know what's different, yeah, from each other, yeah. Um, I think that it's very interesting to know the differences and to know how to deal with it, what we can learn with the different, yeah. Um, so this is, I think, the most important idea in this interview. Um, well, so I think we are done for today, um, and I loved this experience. I hope you too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, so maybe next time we can do other talks about Vietnam, about Philippines. I don't know. Let's see. And the other countries in the world. Um, by the way, I remember now you talked about architecture
Mm.
and the similarities. I recommend you to check the website named alllooksen.com. Yeah, all look same, equal in English. Yeah,
Mm.
I don't know if it's on. It's now it's still functional, but many years ago I was using it. It was very funny because it
Mm-hmm.
compares and many pictures of Japanese, Chinese, and the Korean people
Mm.
in America, and just challenge you to know which one is from which country. Uh,
Yeah.
and I have no idea. I cannot distinguish. Um, and also architecture, also
Oh, I
food.
love it.
Oh,
Okay.
you found it?
Oh, yeah. But I think I'm good at it because I know the colors of South Korean are more green, blue, yellow, and in Japan it's red. Red. Maybe Chinese, I don't have the knowledge.
Good. So later, share with us in the group for English students actually for Japanese students, I thought you are in. Maybe you can share with us your results in this challenge of comparing Chinese, Korean, and Japanese
I
people and
love
their
it.
culture, etc. I have no
I'm
idea.
doing it right now. Like really, I have the same pictures in my phone. I'm not kidding.
Wow,
Like this is Korean, this is Chinese.
good, very good.
Mm.
Well, so that's it,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Love it to you all, and I hope we will meet personally someday. Let's see if in Europe, in Asia, or in Brazil. Let's see. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.